Panaka.
Ino o te kaunihera o Rangitikai. E ihoa o ngā mano tēnei ngā mema o te kaunihera o Rangitikai. Te whakahoki atu nei I te reo whakamoimiti mo ngā manaakitanga e whiwhi nei mātou I roto I ngā mahi pai o tēnei rohe. Manaakitia hoki mātou I roto I ngā take kei runga I tō mātou tepu, I roto I o mātou nei hui. O tira e ihoa o ngā mano, ho mai piki te ora, piki te kaha, piki te māramatanga, me te rangi mārie, kia mātou ngā tangata, ngā iwi katoa, kei raro I o mātou aroaro. Nō reira, ko te tūmanako ka mahitahi mātou I raro I te kotahitanga, mo ngā iwi katoa, kei raro I a mātou. Āmine.
Welcome to our online team who are joining us there. Thank you.
Just to note, I believe the one that's titled conference room is Coddle.
Ah, I see. Yep. Okay.
Just to clarify that. Pretty sure it's
Yeah.
that's not seeing in the background.
That's coral. Yeah. Okay. So that's on that one there. Okay. Got that. Let's see. It's definitely coral sitting there. Okay. So we do have a couple of apologies. We have apologies for lateness from Councillor Angus Gordon. He is on his way, being held up in traffic on the way down from Taihape, and we do have an apology from Councillor Jill Duncan. So could I have that apologies for lateness and the apology from Jill Duncan be?
I did have an apology from Councillor Ash that she may be running late, but she is on screen, so I presume she's live.
All right. So we've got
to move apologies.
Moving Councillor Belsham. Seconding from the chair myself. I've not been made aware of any public forum at this stage, so we have no public forum.
So does that carry after you second?
Yes. I'm assuming that the apologies were received and carried. All those in favour? Aye. Aye. Thank you, Your Worship. Conflict of interest declarations, as a committee, we are all well aware of those. Should anything come to mind throughout the course of business, please raise your hand and bring it to the attention of the chair. Should you feel as you have a conflict of interest, and it will be decided at that point. Confirmation of order of business is as in the order paper. And if we could just move through now to the confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 12th of August. They start on page 6. So we'll move through in the normal fashion. Page 6, page 7, page 8, 9, thank you, 10, and 11. Any matters arising from those minutes as circulated? Being done, could I have a mover for the receipt of the minutes as being a true and correct record? I'll move from the chair. Seconded, Councillor Belsham. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. So moving on to page 12 now for those following us online. Follow-up actions from previous meetings. And we have the current follow-up actions list. Rather than going through those in details with the status comments as per what is listed and the person that they are assigned to, is there any questions arising from the current follow-up actions and the status comments that have been listed in the order paper? We have a question from Your Worship the Mayor.
No, it's not a question so much as the one from assigned to Arno around staff to look into consider capturing the progression of Mangaweka Bridge construction photographs. I have a number of photos on my phone if you are short. But have the Bulls construction, has there actually been a file kept of all the various stages of that construction? Is it all in one place?
Smart E.
Yeah.
Yes, and through you, Mr. Chair, they were collated as part of that video. So that video is online. So most of the majority of the ones that we wanted to capture and keep were part of that.
Yeah, there weren't a series of sort of technical photos that were separate to that you wanted to be able to keep on file.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. I'll follow up with the building consent officers. It must be in a collection there. So every month we had a meeting with the contractor, and they had a whole collation of pictures of all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And I would imagine they would be either saved on the property file or in the project file.
Yeah, it's just nice to be able to say that we have actually got somewhere where there's a repository for all time of that. Yeah. Anyway, that's just the point. I've got some photos if you need them.
Thank you, Worship.
Can I pause? Sorry, Mr.
Yes.
Chair. I believe from what His Worship has said that this is actually an undertaking for us or an action.
It is an action at the moment listed here as current follow-up actions down on from the 12th of August meeting.
Yes, that action's been closed, and it sort of, the questions are around staff, or the action is around staff to consider. Are we having a repository? Yes or no?
Yeah.
We are.
So it's explaining there. So what we're going to do from now onwards, it'll be saved on SharePoint
Okay.
under the project, and we'll take some of the highlights and put it on the website for people to look at. So in the future, all projects, there will be a photo.
Further to that, so if somebody goes to access the LIM reports and so on, that file, does that then refer them to that? I was thinking 10, 15 years time,
Yeah.
if we ever needed to go back and check something.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't think so. I think a LIM report is really about the bigger picture of the property that you want to buy. I think it's really handy for us if there would be some form of defects claim or something down the line that we can go back and reference those pictures and just see what was done in the construction.
Yeah.
So more on a technical level, I think.
I'll leave that to your expertise. I'm not quite satisfied.
Okay, thank you for your question. Could I just ask a quick question of Councillor Ash, who is online, and Councillor Belsham, with regards to the item around Calico Line and Broadway intersection. Are you happy with the outcome of that, being it was a question that you were both involved in?
That was going to be one of my questions I was going to raise, actually, was, so it talks about the grading, it's the gradient of the upramp of that. But when in the status comments it says the contract has been, they've been discussed with the contractor, any proposed repairs and timelines will be reported back to this committee, but then its status is closed. It's still an outstanding issue, and I just wondered whether we need to leave it sitting on there so that, you know, I don't like seeing something closed and then it falls off the follow-up actions until actually something's been resolved, and that's still to be resolved. So it wasn't just the gradient, but I think Councillor Ash raised about the road markings on there. They've been painted over and shifted, and at night time, when the lights are shining on them, it looks like there's about 7 different lines all over the road, and it's actually really confusing. So that's it. I believe that's probably where Councillor Ash's issue is. And I guess that still hasn't been resolved, so I'd hate to see that actually removed off the follow-up actions.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may just reply to that. What we've done, and specifically in the new role that I have, is we look at quality over the organisation. And in this case, we identified that there might be some quality issues with the contractor at the moment. We listed a whole long list of them, and this was one of them. So after the previous meeting, I've done another drive-by and had a good look at it, and there is an issue there. It's on that list of unresolved quality issues that we are looking at. And I completely agree this should stay on until they are all resolved. Otherwise, you're correct, they might just fall off the list. So what we have in mind is to look at all of those issues and resolve all of them in a way that is acceptable to us, and that we don't repay for work already done.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bersham. Councillor Carter, you had a question. Is it of a similar nature?
Yes, the same sort of thing regarding Edward Street, that being closed, but it's still under discussion with the contractors. Is that closed, or is it still ongoing?
It's exactly the same, and we will leave that on until it's completely resolved.
So it'll become an ongoing until that issue is resolved, both that and the top item on that list. Is there any further discussion with regards to those matters? So
My point is perhaps regarding the photographic repository that we started the conversation with.
Yes.
That's not closed until the repository's there.
Yes.
So I want that to be reopened until we can actually answer the question, yes, a repository is there and is being used.
Are you happy with that?
If I may, what I understand is every project will have one.
Will.
Yep.
So is
So-
Tamatapihi and Mangaweka Bridge, do they have one?
Mangaweka Bridge has one, Tamarapi not, because it's gone by. So projects from this point onwards, the setup will be that there's a picture.
We can talk about it offline, but I'll reopen it until I'm satisfied that both of them are done.
Okay. Thank you. Any further comments or questions from the follow-up actions list? Any online? Being none. So could I have somebody move that those be received? Moved, Worship the Mayor, seconded. Councillor Carter, seconded. Thank you. Chair's report as circulated, not a great deal in there apart from the fact that you will probably read into it from my tone that I'm very keen to see things pushed on, moved on, and got on with. It's just a little bit in my nature to want to see the numerous projects that we have on the go started and committed to, and pretty much got on with. I can report that myself and Councillor Belsham have our first meeting with the Better Business Case Study for the future builds in both Martin and Taihape, and our first meeting is scheduled for next Wednesday the 20th, I think, Councillor Belsham, that's correct?
That's correct.
And there is a number of other meetings scheduled very, very quickly after that to start to build that business case, and very much looking forward to starting that process, and looking forward to also getting greater engagement with council as a whole throughout that process as we progress along with that early stages of that. So if there are no questions of my report, being done, I'd like to move from the chair that my report be received. Seconded, Councillor Panapa, thank you. All those in favour? Is there anybody against? Thank you for asking that question. Yeah. Carried. Right, reports for information. Infrastructure Group report. Who is you leading that in Jess's absence? Hello. Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just first of all, apologies from Jess. She's got a family issue that she's got to deal with, so she asked that I just offer apologies, and then I will step you through the report. And I think what we can do is similar to what we do every time we have the meeting, and just kind of step through them. So we'll start with the roading section, and I'm open to any questions if anybody have any queries.
Just the first one, can the reports name Waka Kotahi as the authority, not NZTA? They are sensitive around this. So there's 2 or 3 occasions where the report refers to NZTA, that's not their name now.
I just have one one comment rather than a question. If you read through the report, it goes right through to May, June next year, and there's a significant amount of work that the council is undertaking with our shared services group, and it spreads from literally one end of the district to the other, so it's quite detailed. I just wondered if there was some merit in having a list like this, which is a fairly simple read, to just show what is being undertaken, displayed somewhere through our social media platforms, just to let people know what our actual, there's a huge workload there, and there's a lot of good being done right across the entire network, rather than having it buried in an asset management plan or in something that takes a little bit of time to find. This is a significant amount of work, and it does spread right across our district. A significant part of it is in the rural sector, but I just wondered if there was some merit in having it collated or formulated somehow so that we can clearly show to our ratepayers and our residents just what our plan is in a fairly simple format. Is that possible?
Absolutely. I'm happy to work with Jess and Arno to get something that's understandable onto the website and social media.
Yeah, the point being is the fact that these works are planned and scheduled to get underway is it's a good news story, and it means that we are pushing on. Your Worship.
A couple of other questions from me. The first one, in terms of the report around bridges, there's comments where the wall has already failed. Is that an imminent health safety risk for our people, or what's the degree of concern around that? Failed is a fairly substantial word.
Bruce Road and Paranui Road.
Yeah, I will get details around it and bring that back. Oh, great.
It hasn't, thank you, Your Worship, Chairman, Councillors. It hasn't failed catastrophically. It's starting to slump and it will have to be replaced. So that's why it's on the programme. If there was imminent danger, there'd be fenced off, etc.
There's no need to impose closures or speed limits or anything like that.
It's just starting to look sick, so it needs to be replaced.
The second question is one of trying to lock in my mind this report, the timeframes of this report. So we know, for instance, Waka Kotahi have agreed to an extra funding package. Is that work that's included in that after that renegotiation, or is this a schedule of work prior to that renegotiation?
I can answer that. There is no more money. That's the first thing. This report was written for August. This was before we got the final budgets. So when you get the next one, it'll be slightly different because we've had to reprioritise to fit the budgets. We now have much work with Dave and Dan Black. We've completed the final programme business case, which has got the entire shopping list for the next 3 years. I've spoken to Waka Kotahi, and they said the budget is the budget. There's no more money. And I understand that RDC has sufficient funds to meet this commitment, let alone anything else. Having said that, there's a number of projects that they did not fund because they've admitted that their system, there's that many links in it, it wasn't completely linked together. So all your walking and cycling was crossed off. So I said, if there was a project that was near and dear to council's hearts, and they wanted to promote that, even though you're like one of the walking and cycling ones, could we do that under low cost, low risk? And he said he'd be open to discussing that, but the bottom line is the bottom line. So we'd have to reprioritise. So if you brought something in new, something would have to be shoved out.
Yeah, this has probably added to my confusion a little bit. So initially, pre-LTP, we went out with a roading program that locally approved.
Yep.
Then immediately before our LTP, they removed a whole lot of money from it.
Yeah, they downsized it a bit.
They downsized it.
What size as they called it?
So that's when we struck our LTP.
Yep.
But my understanding was subsequent to that, they said we have now gone back to government. Government has released more money to.
No, as I said last time I was here, over the 3 years, you're 5 million down.
Can I just clear that up, John, please? If I may,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman,
certainly.
just before we continue with the misunderstanding, I think your worship's completely correct. We started off originally with $37 million proposed budget. That got reduced to 30 million that ended up in the long-term plan. That has now been finalized at 33 million, so it has gone up again. You are completely correct. What I can understand, what John was saying is that the list of projects that we have now might slightly change once they've done the reprioritization in accordance with Waka Kotahi, how we're going to fund it.
Yeah.
So at the next A&I would imagine this list might be slightly different to what it is now. The other really important thing is we still need council's nod for the new budget. So that's something that myself and Dave and John are working on right now.
Yeah.
To say, this is what we had in the LTP, it's changed, it now looks like this. And do we have your consent for that budget, and can we continue, or do we do something else? And lastly, something to bring up is that the unsubsidized roading work, still needs to come back to you as well, to say, this is what we're planning for the year, and do we have your approval for that? So I think those are 4 really important points to make. So the budget that John's talking about is the final $33 million budget, which is 3 million more than what went into the LTP.
That's what I was getting at. That's why I was trying to time frame reference it.
Yeah.
So
Question from
That's
Councillor.
good.
Question from Councillor Belsham.
Do you have comment?
No, I'm following on from that. We finished this yesterday. So got a PDF of this now. And as I say, it's got 3 years in the budgets and it matches the allocations from Waka Kotahi. So if I send a copy to Dave and Arno, and then you can write the thoughts in, this is what it looks like. And then if you want to make any changes, you know, as I said with the walking, cycling, something's dropped out. If you want it to be something brought back in, then you can let me know and I will do the negotiation with NZTA, you know, the parameters associated, and promote that whatever project you like.
yeah, the one that I would like then, taking your point, that I would like this committee to consider as a recommendation back to council is that we try and engage with Waka Kotahi and negotiate around the Hereford Street, because pedestrian access, because it is something we agreed to do within the LTP. And if we can't do that, we'll then have to advise the schools reposition and note it within council.
So following on from that, if Arnold, you get this, have a look at it, and you've got that particular project, if there's any others, and just send me an email, these, then I'll talk to the Waka Kotahi guy in Palmy and make the necessary changes. But before I do, I'll say, we can bring this on, anything else that you want, but these will be deferred, so that you know what the impact is. Because they've got 3 bottom lines. We have maintenance and renewals, but they just look at the bottom line for both. So maintenance and renewals is one bottom line, so that there's flexibility there. And then they've got, the other one is improvements. And they had all these work categories, but then they lumped them all into low cost, low risk to add to the confusion. And then the last one is road to zero. They don't want to budge on road to zero because that's a government thing. But in the low cost, low risk, there is room for negotiation for reprioritising whichever project you'd like to see done.
Just before I go to Councillor Belsham, can I just seek a little bit of clarification there? The Mayor has just requested that there be a recommendation or something to come back around the bridge. Has that been captured as an action to come back to Council? Have you got that noted? So we can just be clear about what you were talking about there? Yeah, so, yeah.
The process that staff are advising this committee is that we now, as at today, have a revised report on the agreed programme of work for the next 3 years of Waka Kotahi. Our role will be to present that to you.
Yes.
And should you find things that are in there that you wish to reprioritise, John has said that we are able to do that, but that will have to come firstly to you in the report, because you don't know yet what's in and what's out. I don't know what's in and what's out.
Okay, so that's all right. It was just the Mayor's comment around the bridge in Hereford Street as it was listed. I just want to know if we were able to make sure that would have been captured, and if it's going to be captured within what you've just talked about, then that's fine.
Yeah, we don't know if it's in or out yet.
Yeah, right.
That bridge is out, isn't it? It was a walk and cycling.
Well, we haven't received the report yet to formally for us to know that it's in or out. And if we go down a path of each individual one ahead of
Yeah, and that's why I preferred it if I got an email from Arno with the entire whatever you'd like to do.
Yeah. Cool. Councillor Belsham, question.
It was on a similar vein, and taking into account the Chief Executive's comments there, that may be arguing down that point, but we through the LTP process, we went out, and one of the safe walking areas was highlighted as Ngātawa Road, which is a State Highway 1 bypass. And that was put out there as a position that this council was going to install a walking way along that. And then we heard it was removed in previous information provided to this committee. And that would be one that I would absolutely fight for, to make sure that it is put through for negotiation. So if we're going to add the bridge one in for the Hereford Heights.
Certainly sounds as though my understanding is that we'll get an opportunity to have that discussion.
Yeah, and understanding that after those comments, but I just wanted to raise it here to make sure that that doesn't get lost.
Just on that then, could I just also note that my request to have some of this information on our website so it can be publicly seen would be one to be pulled back a little bit until such times we tidied up where we're actually going with it. So I could just note that as well.
Yeah, because if you promote those, then the list that I've got for the September reports might
change. Understand that. Thank you. Your Worship.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the recommendation could be that council considers potential reprioritisations within the roading budget, and just leave it as that a loose item recommendation back to council.
Mr. Chair, may I suggest, would it be useful if we produce something for the council meeting as a discussion with all the council?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's achievable if we have the detail available now. We could put that to council.
send you the link
Yeah,
as soon as I get back.
Just
But do you want the advanced copy, or shall I keep this as my working copy as the kaleidoscope continues to turn?
Your Worship,
through you, Mr. Chair, just to ask for some advice from Mr. Jones using his understanding of the process. The way that I read this one, I've raised some significant issues for Waka Kotahi. They have a high degree of embarrassment over this.
Yes,
they want it to go away.
Yes.
I wonder whether there's also the opportunity at a high level to say to Waka Kotahi, for instance, arguable whether it's the bridge or Ngātawa Road, whether they would actually increase it, budget, whether it is worth discussing.
The budgets are very constrained. There is this pandemic going around, and the nation is hemorrhaging money.
I just note they are incredibly embarrassed over this.
Absolutely, and that's why there's an opportunity for me to negotiate bringing some of those walking cycling projects back, because they would like,
Let's
as
see
you
when
say,
let's
like
see when the
to go
report
where-
comes back to us I think we've made our points, our thoughts clear from the committee, but let's see when
Yeah,
it comes
and I
back.
think we have an understanding where this report then now sits.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a question, Councillor Gordon, you had requested a little bit of information around bridges, and I see there's a number of bridges listed in here. Did that answer your questions from earlier? With regards to,
So, yeah, that was relating to Napier Road.
that's right, okay, thank you.
I think it's been signed off.
Sorry, carrying on with the report, we're a bit tied up there on roading. Must be because Don was here.
Yeah, thank you, John. That's great, thank you.
Sorry, get back to the ranch. Send you that link. Well, not a
Thank
link.
you,
I'll
Miss-
send you the PDF.
Thanks, John. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we'll continue. Any
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I do have a question. Through your chair, page, oh gosh, what page is it? My machine work. We're in the resilience improvements section. My machine seems to have lost its
Page
number.
21.
Sorry,
21.
21, thank you. Up the top, Parno Road, installation of extra culverts. Could we just make sure that our contractors communicate well with our farmers on that road, please? I know there has been a lot of new fencing done and we've got some really proactive farmers there. It'd be awful if we had to go and destroy something and, you know, just good courtesy, give them a good heads up. You know, they're happy people when we give them a good heads up. Yeah. And the other question I had, the bottom of that panel, Abattoir Road, train stream away from bridge. I'm assuming that's the Hautapu River. Yeah. It's just a big picture question. It's not a detailed thing at all. Yeah.
The river meanders and they tend to cut against one side of the bridge.
Yeah.
And undermine the foundations, so it's just to drain it away from
Okay.
that.
Yeah, well, there was quite a lot of work done there last summer. So, okay.
Yes, it's a good point that you raised, Councillor Gordon, with regards to keeping in contact with the farmers in that local area. But like all things,
Yeah.
you know, communication and good, clear communication is always the key.
Yep.
So I think that's a good point.
No further questions on that one?
Sorry, one more question, Mr. Jones. The railway bridge that was damaged just north of Taihape with a truck hitting it, does that come? Has that been an insurance claim against the owner of the vehicle, or has that come back against council? And if there hasn't been a claim against the operator, do we have to lodge a complaint?
What normally happens with that is like the vehicle crashes into a crash barrier and we get the details. Then by the police, we send the owner an invoice for the damage. I can follow up on that.
Yeah,
That's the
just be
usual
interested,
process.
because it shouldn't be our responsibility. And if it's just become part of our work stream, then maybe we should either be lodging an insurance claim or claim back against the damage.
Our bridge is not insured, so you couldn't follow that path. But what we can do is try to recoup the costs from the trucking company. It'll still be part of the program and it gets its 65% subsidy, whatever it is. And then if you can get some money out of whoever caused the damage, then it just goes back into council coffers.
If I may, through.
Yes,
Chair,
Councillor
just,
Gordon.
are you referring to the Transwell Bridge?
Yes.
So have they actually lodged something against us? Otherwise,
Well,
otherwise we should
lodging
just
against
go
someone,
away.
I just want to make sure that we're not footing
Yeah,
the
I
bill.
agree.
If it's a rail overbridge,
Yes. This is,
it's not our problem.
yeah.
Somebody else's bridge.
So we don't have any involvement.
No, it's their bridge. And Kiwi Rail will go after
The truck driver who
the truck
evaporated.
driver, yeah.
Mr. Benedy has a comment which may be helpful.
If I may, we were quite involved in the repairs. It was all Kiwi Rail. None of it was covered by us.
Yeah, I knew that we had an involvement in the repairs, that's why I raised the question.
Yeah, so no cost to us.
Okay.
That's now been clarified. Are you happy with that clarification?
Yep, absolutely.
Moving on further in the report.
Thank you very much. The next portion of the report is the utilities projects. It is very similar, as you would notice, to the PMO reports that you see often. It's just a little bit more detail. So if you've got any questions around that.
So we, questions arising from that. I just had one, the water supply on page 28, Bulls Reservoir.
Let's have a look.
I'm not too far through to catch up with that.
See, mine does not have the numbers on them.
Yeah, it's under water supply.
Right, here we go.
Yeah, we've got Bulls Reservoir. We've spent $34,797, but we don't appear to have a budget. I was wondering what that was.
That is a good question. So we had a budget in the previous financial year, and we have built the reservoir out of that budget. There's a small, well, I say small, there's about a $300,000 carryover from the previous financial year to this financial year to complete the pump station. So what I will do with this one is I will get those figures included in there for the next meeting, so it's more complete.
Okay, so there is a budget for it. It's just not listed in this report. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Further questions from the floor, Councillor Gordon?
Page 43, the Hautapu Street Sewer Main and Papakai Pump Station Diversion Project, are they linked? Is Hautapu Sewer Main, is that the new main that goes from the pump up to wherever it goes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's the July report. Council's
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just find that one.
Consent compliance.
I'm on 43. Sorry, have I jumped the gun?
Okay, let's just, we'll just take a few moments to make sure that we're clarifying the right report here.
Yeah.
My voice is confusion.
The Chief Executive would just like to make comment regarding this report.
So members may recall at the last Assets and Infrastructure meeting, the report provided wasn't accurate in a format that was and as a result, you chose not to accept the report.
That's correct. Yep.
So what you'll see in this report, and forgive me for not mentioning it earlier, you have now a revised copy of that report. So that you'll see that from page 35 is the July paper. And what you'll see that we've been previously referring to was from the September report.
Okay. Thank you. All councillors will recall that, I'm sure.
Thank you for that. So the question that you have there, Councillor Gordon, is the Hautapu Street sewer main was a renewal of a sewer main up at Hautapu Street, close to the old stockyards.
Yes.
Completely separate to the Papakai pump station.
Okay. Further questions? I'm looking online. Nothing there. If you'd like to carry on taking us through it, Mr. Benay.
Thank you very much. So then we move on to compliance. And you'll notice that the compliance looks new. And we can step through them. So the first is water supply, consent compliance. And the one that's non-compliant is still the tie-happy. So that's work in progress. We've got WSP looking at what we can do from an engineering perspective to try and reduce the flow through those pipes. Then we move on to water supply, the drinking water standards compliance. And both tie-happy and Mangaweka non-compliant due to spikes in turbidity in the water and UV. And as you know, if the spikes continue for more than a 3-minute period, then we are non-compliant for the year.
How do we, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, how do we fix these spikes?
What we've done in the previous year, through you, Mr. Chairman, sorry, we've actually installed double UV systems on all of the plants. And what we have to do now is have clever electronics in the background that will notice what's going on and immediately flick over to a backup. if the problem persists, then it needs to shut down before the 3 minutes are up. So we are trialing some of that in the smaller plants to see if we can get that done. But the ideal really is to rather shut it down before we extend the 3 minute period. But it is quite a tricky thing to achieve.
Then shut down delivery of water. So until we are compliant, the water can't flow back through the system. So that literally it's a pump shut off process.
We stop the whole treatment process until we can either resolve the problem or get those turbidity levels down.
Does that run then to airlock problems?
Not so much airlock problems rather than storage problems. So it depends on how much storage we have available and how long we can shut down for.
So with our storage capacity during the summer months, it could cause a concern, could it?
It's a great question. In the summer months it could, but luckily in the summer months we don't have turbidity problems. We have turbidity problems in the winter when there's high rainfall. And luckily for us, in the winter there's high storage, so we could do that. You would remember last year we had a compliance improvement plan, and that was where we purchased all this redundant seed so we can flick from one to the other. And now it's just the next step is for the software to kind of catch up with that.
Any sort of time frame around that process in terms of software solutions to it?
Not at the moment, but why don't I bring that back to the next meeting and give you some firm dates around it? If that's acceptable to you.
Just before we go to Councillor Belcher, I just acknowledge too that we had quite a detailed discussion of this as a group of councillors around as part of a recent workshop, and we went into some of these issues in some detail, and clearly it was the desire of the full council to get some steps put in place as soon as possible with regards to these issues of non-compliance that appear throughout the year. But we also recognise that one spike will cause a non-compliance, and we're looking to do everything we can to address those issues. Councillor Belsham, you had a question?
Yes, in regards with this report. So that's non-compliant for August, and it's shown as red for August for that small blip on the radar of that. You said that stays like that for the whole 12-month period. If we've had one small non-compliance, that continues throughout the whole 12-month period. So will every following month for these two plants show in the red? Is that what you're saying?
If we look at the monthly picture, the other months might be compliant. Right. If we look at the annual picture that you get reported on a national stage, we will be non-compliant for the year.
Okay. So this will change it on a monthly basis. Okay.
Thank you. Any questions online? No? That's good there. Thank you, Arnie.
Thank you. And then we move on to the wastewater compliance. And what Jess has done, she divides it up into the 2 months that we're reporting on. And we have a look at 3 different things: the volume, the effluent quality, and the environmental impact. If there is a red block in the table, then the comments should speak to that. It is unfortunate that we use a lot of acronyms, especially when it comes to the chemical analysis of the water. If I can describe any of those, just let me know if there's any misunderstanding on what those are. I also just want to mention, while I can, is that I've had some process engineers looking at the Hunterville issue. So Hunterville is interesting. We use a chemical to reduce the phosphorus that goes out into the stream to comply. It's a very fine balance. If we dose enough of the chemical, we actually exceed the chemical requirement on the stream. If we don't dose enough, we exceed on the phosphorus. So it's a bit of a lose-lose for us at the moment. And what I've asked them to do is to look at a more sophisticated way of determining where that level sits, so we can dose in a much more specific way to try and achieve both those goals. And we'll work on those. As far as the volumes are concerned, that is subject potentially to a new consent application for Taihape and for Hunterville.
Your worship, question?
Yes, with regard to that flow one, Taihape, we're talking June, and we're talking a failure because of low flow rates in the Hautapu. But we're talking June, so presumably if we've got a problem in June, we've got an extraordinary problem in.
Comment from the Northern Councillor.
I can help answer that. You know, we've gone through our third drought autumn in a row, and the Hautapu sat at low flow, you know, around 600 litres a second until late June. It was mind-boggling. I've never seen it before, and I live beside the river down there.
The flow rates are fine at the moment.
Oh yeah, cranking at 5 cubics.
Just pointing out that this is a June event of low flow.
Yes, but if I can make comment, we do have WSB working on our behalf to do some either a consenting program or new consenting program for a number of our treatment plants. So is that captured within that, the issue that the Mayor has raised?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, there's two issues with Taipi. If you look at the wastewater volume block, it's also red. That is due to high rainfall in winter and a high amount of stormwater that gets into the wastewater system. So that's indicative of inflow and infiltration into the system. If we look at the water take on the other side, that is where we're looking at engineering solutions to reduce the flow into that open system without creating new problems like airlocks and negative pressure and things like that. So there's two separate things. So I would expect this to recover quite quickly now that we're starting to move out of winter. But in the heavy rainfall, that is a problem.
So we can expect to see continuing non-compliance for.
It's a great question. No, so what we've done all over the network, I'm working on a whole new asset management strategy for all the networks. So we have measured the performance of the wastewater networks in Bulls, Martin and Taihape to try and identify where this is coming from. And then once we've identified exactly where it's coming from, we have a look at the volumes and then we can come up with a business case as to how do we solve that. Quite often, depending on the number of properties that are connected, it costs more to find the water than actually to solve the problem. So potentially we could look at storage or we can look at other solutions that might solve the problem for us during rain conditions to get around that. So that work has started about 18 months ago and is continuing. Unfortunately, it's spread over about 3 years, but we will be able to identify solutions for all of those problems.
I also note that there's been some ongoing engagement with Horizons regarding our plans as to what we're doing going forward.
That's right. Yep, absolutely.
Further questions on this particular subject? Can't see anything online. I don't know if you'd like to carry on through where
Thank
you're
you.
up to there.
The last portion of the report is just reporting back on the solid waste performance over the 2 months.
Any questions regarding the solid waste graphs and data which have been presented to us today? Don't see anything from online.
Sorry, could I just...
So, yes,
There's
Your
one
Worship.
thing I'm looking at my notes that I've missed. And if I take your chair's displeasure and go back to water just for a second.
No problem.
In terms of water usage, the report that we've been given indicates a fairly high rate of water usage of about 480 cubes per year.
That's
And
it.
it gives the breakdown of all of that. But what I am wondering about in the last year, the measuring period that this is over, was we had numerous flushings of the network for discoloration. We had fire brigade using the network testing. Surely that must be a very significant water use. I mean, we were flushing streets every single night for a long time.
Yeah, just to capture that, Your Worship. So that's quite detailed in 9.2, which is a water consumption report. So if we can just and can we just receive the infrastructure report foremost?
Sorry.
So I'd move that from the chair that we receive that, seconded from Councillor Gordon. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And then we can move on to the water consumption report, which is referring directly to the items that you have just discussed. And it is quite detailed in some of the work that Mr. Bernardi has brought to us there, but it's a valid question that you asked, so if we can just jump straight to that one, Arno, with perhaps an answer from the question, the query of the Mayor.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a numbers issue. If we would flush even 1,000 litres through an open hydrant, is quite a substantial volume of water. But if we look at the daily consumption, especially in summer, we're about 4,500 cubic meters. So 4.5 million litres. So 1,000 or 2,000 litres on top of that really makes no difference. It's so insignificant compared to the total volume that we use in the day that it actually makes no difference. So a good example would be a tanker volume, the roading tanker volumes of about 8 cubic meters. So that's 8 out of 4,500. So even that as a volume is a good perspective of what that total volume actually is. Also, from memory, we had quite a bit of flushing in January of 2019 or 2020 because of the hot summer, and there was quite a bit of discoloration in the water. This picture is more from June last year to June this year, where we had less flushing, I think, than in previous years.
Okay. So what you're saying is that yes, it's occurred, but probably not of significance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could I just ask Councillor Ash, this is an item that you've been particularly interested in. Do you have questions of this report?
No, I haven't got questions of it, thank you. But just watching it and seeing how we progress over the summer.
Thank you. Councillor Delgatti has a question.
Can you just explain to me what a real water loss actually is, please?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. There's commercial water losses and real water losses, and real water losses are actual leaks. It's physical water disappearing out of the system. Commercial water losses are old meters, old equipment that are not accurate, that actually give you an incorrect number. It doesn't mean there's actual physical water escaping out of the network, but rather just a calibration problem. So real losses are actual water out of the network.
And so we know that amount. How do we actually know that amount? Sorry, I'm not.
Through you, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
It's at the moment it is a theoretical calculation.
Okay.
So it's open to interpretation as to how accurate that is. 42% is really high, and this coming summer we will have a more detailed look at potential losses out of the system in Martin to see how much of that is actual real losses and how much of it.
Could I just say, when you talk about actual losses as in leaking, or as actual losses as unaccounted for? Because they're two slightly different things.
It's interesting. In the past, it used to be called unaccounted for water, and really that is what it is. So we know 100 litres leave the plant, but we can only account for 70 litres going to the customer. So 30 are lost somewhere, and it's real losses. In previous years, unaccounted for water was kind of a collective for real losses and commercial losses altogether. They like to these days to refer to it as actual losses, as leaks out of the network, and there's all kinds of different ways to measure that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carter, I believe you had your hand up.
Yes, you've got there a number of people connected, 3,750. Is that connections or people per se using the water?
Yeah, thank you. That is people using the water, and I did that rather than connections because the calculation is per person per day. So it's important to know how many people we serve.
And another one, do you actually have any metered homes to see what actually goes through a home rather than guessing it going backwards?
We do. We have got high users that are on meters. I'm not sure about the numbers in Martin, but there are a number of homes on meters that would have a pool or supply water to a lifestyle block or something like that. That would be metered.
Does that relate to anything like the figures you've got?
I don't know. I didn't look at any of those metered volumes in any detail for this calculation.
Because would that not be a more accurate figure to work off rather than what you are producing at the plant and dividing it by the users?
If I could, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Carter, the CE has comment with regards to this question.
Yep.
I think we would have accurate figures, but the purpose of installing a meter is because we acknowledge those to be abnormal users. So those are users that are officers expect would use more than the maximum permitted amount per year. And so Arno said small farms, lifestyle properties with orchards, watering, swimming pools, etc. So that we know already they are going to be outliers.
Did that answer your question, Councillor Carter?
Not really, because there's no numbers being involved. You may have meters for who've got high usage, but what is that high usage?
In excess of 250 cubes.
Yeah, but what are those meters reading at those houses? And then you get little old Joe Bloggs retiree sitting in the home using for the shower and for doing the dishes, compared to the figure that you've actually got here on the report. I still feel this is an incredibly high number that you're referring to.
It is of course an average though. The report refers to an average based on numbers of people, so there will always be variances, I should assume.
So another assumption.
It's an average.
Also, Mr. Chairman, if I may just comment on that, we must remember that this measure is not to be as accurate as we can be on the average use per household. What this does, it tells us how the network is performing. And in my view, looking at these numbers, it raises a big red flag on real losses. If you would have a shop and you lose 42% of your stock before you open the doors, you're not going to be in business for a very long time. So for me, what this number tries to do is to kind of focus our attention on where we need to spend money. And in this case, it's quite clear that it's on real losses. If we remove the real losses out of the discussion, the number comes down to 288 litres per person per day, which is very much in line with engineering numbers of about 250 or 300 litres per person per day. So we could delve down more into the detail that you have proposed, but I don't think there's too much more value in going into more detail. I think the big red flag here would be on real losses.
A couple of questions from the floor, Your Worship.
Thank you for this report, because it is important we understand this. The rising or falling mains, whichever you want to call it, for instance, in Martin, it's a few Ks, and there has been historic connections from that falling main. How easy would it be, or can we assess the water flow into the end of that falling main? In other words, it's coming down road. Before it enters the Martin urban network, are we able to then decide whether there's an issue within that falling main, or a number of untapped, no knowledge resources, for instance, that could be going out to farms or wherever?
Yeah, absolutely. As the line enters the urban area, we have a special fancy valve sitting there to control pressure, and we can actually add electronics to that valve to measure the volume. And more importantly, we will also look at all the meters up the falling main to be sure that everybody's metered and we can quantify that volume. Yeah.
Bearing in mind they are fairly expensive pipelines, and there have been doubts about the seals between them, and perhaps that may be a step that we could look to undertake.
Just before we go to a couple of other questions, and Councillor Dalgety has her hand up there, is that an undertaking that is something that you intend to do as part of understanding what this real loss is at 42%? Is that something that you would be envisioning doing?
What we are planning and what we're working on is an overall project of what's going to happen, and that's always based on more information. So what we're doing at the moment is collecting more information on the network. It'll flag to us where the big loss areas are, and we'll go there first. It might be one of them, but it might also not be. So I would rather suggest once we have that program, more detail around the program, I'll bring that back to the committee and we'll present that.
I don't want to set us with specific action.
Right.
They're the experts. I've just raised the question, that's all.
Happy. Councillor Dalgety, you had your hand up?
So is this type of investigation done in Bulls and Taipi as well?
Yes, it is. It's for the whole district. Yep.
Thank you.
And Councillor Belsham?
Yeah, just a question on, in regards with this total volume of real water loss. Are you confident in the ability to identify large volume water users? So is there a process that you use for identifying them, or is it a best guesstimate?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that is a very tricky thing to do. What I'd like to do, so some of our supply districts are quite small, Bulls and Taipi, but Martin, I think, is big enough to split it up into 2 or 3. We'll have a look in those zones to kind of figure out what the consumption is in there. If we get to a point where we are confident about the losses, we've got that under control, and there's still a lot of flow going into those districts, then we would need to look at potentially who could be using it. But that's always an unknown if it's not metered exactly where it's going.
That was going to be my next question. Are we looking at metering? So His Worship's mentioned metering as it comes into the urban township, but then, as you say, we've got zones. Are we looking at metering zones so we can get an understanding? Zone C is using a huge amount more water than zone A and B. What are the reasonings behind that?
Absolutely correct. That's exactly how it works. So there's to measure is to know. The more we measure, the more we know, and the more we understand how the network moves. So we are looking at, I think, 3 or 4 flow meters in the network to kind of figure that out. The other thing that we use from an engineering perspective is we look at what the network's doing at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, because we know there's no other activity on the network. If there are big water movements at that time of night, we know it's either a large industry or something that's using it as processes through the night, or it's losses. And what we then have, if we got all these meters in place, we can keep an eye on those minimum night flows. And if one starts going up, we can go after that leak before it becomes a big problem. And I think just for some interest, I spoke to a service provider in the week, and what they do is they fly a drone in summer over the whole supply area. And it's so simple. There's a large temperature difference between the tar sealed roads and the water from the plant. And they have a thermal camera that picks up the temperature difference. And that's how they identify big leaks. So we've got ours booked in for summer and we'll fly all of them and have a look in the summer and see if we can pick them up. So just a bit of interesting information.
There are no further questions directly relating to this report. Thank you for bringing it to us. It is a matter that's raised its head a couple of times, particularly via Councillor Ash with regards to that volumes. And I think the conclusion from what we've heard today is we've now got a greater understanding of what these processes are and what some of the steps we can put in place to further understand what's actually going on with the water losses in our network. So thank you for that. I'll move from the chair that report be received. We have a seconder from Councillor Ash. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carry. Thank you, Ash. Moving on to the Hunterville Sport Recreation Trust report as being received, acknowledging Councillor Dalgety as the chair of the Hunterville Sport and Recreation Trust and also a councillor. So thank you, Fee. Would you like to take us through this report?
I think we can just take it as read there. We were very fortunate to get 50,000 from the 4 Regions Trust, which enabled us to do all the concreting you can see in the photos there, which has made a big difference. And yeah, and now we're wanting to, as we've previously discussed, want to continue this work around the rest of the pool. The pool is used during February. Every school child swims in it every day, and plus our casual users, plus the swimming club. But yeah, apart from the issues raised in the last council meeting, which we're going to discuss at council, take it as read. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Detailed report there, as you've mentioned, has been circulated, and I'm sure read by the rest of the committee. Do we have any questions arising from Fee's report as chair of the Hunterville Recreation Trust? Being none, I'll move from the chair that report be received, and seeking a seconder, Councillor Carter. Thank you. That's that item there. Next item, I'm a little lost on that one, sorry. Seeing as we do not have Jess here.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, Jess sent me an email last night as a bit of a summary of the discussion points that she had in mind. So if I may, I'll step you through those. And really what it is, what Jess would like to propose is, would there be any appetite to have a look at the Bulls Water Tower, to paint something on it to make it more aesthetically pleasing for people travelling past or through Bulls? That is the main idea. Jess, and I'm not sure if she sent this out to all councillors, but she found some examples in New York where there were a lot of old water tanks, and they've painted them and made them look a lot prettier. And she uses that as an example. She's also had discussions with Laquan, as well as the economic development team, to ask if that fits into what they're trying to achieve in the district, and both of them are very excited about this opportunity. So from a cultural art perspective and from a placemaking and destination management perspective that Jen and the team are working on, this would fit in really well. She notes that there are funds available for placemaking and creative endeavours, and that could be used. We can also apply for a whole range of funding, really, if we want to pursue this further. And actually, potentially, it could be at very, very small cost to council if we want to do something. Laquan and Jen both proposed that we should open this up to community for submissions, and then we can have a look at what submissions we get in and how we can put that together and put something onto the tower that would be pleasing to everybody. She suggests that a panel could be appointed to select the preferred submissions, and that herself, Laquan and Jen would explore further funding grant options and opportunities. And really to open it up for discussion and see what you think of the idea.
Well, I'll be a starter for 10 on that one. It certainly seems to me that the idea's got some merit, and I think it could be a further enhancement for Bulls. As I said in my report, it is the gateway to the Rangitikei district. So it seems to me as though it's got some merit to get some further investigation. But I'm open up to the committee if they've got further comment apart from that. Councillor Dalgety.
I'm really keen for it to be investigated, especially if we can do it with no limited cost to council. But driving past the Foxton one in the evening, I think it's very attractively lit, and so that I would like to be added as a consideration.
Councillor Carter.
There is a request being put in last night from the Bulls Community Committee to paint murals, whatever, on the front of the reservoir part of the construction there, as opposed to, if you may see that, this is the back of the reservoir at the present. If that can be seen. So that is the back of that, and also the base of the tower is in the same sort of artwork. But yeah, there is a request coming through from the committee, Bulls Community Committee, regarding the murals, if they can, paint on the front of the reservoir facing Te Mahi Street.
Yes, I would certainly think that any discussions or formulation to go forward with a proposal on this would certainly heavily involve the Bulls Community Committee as certainly as a first starting and grounding point. Councillor Belcher.
I hate to be the devil's advocate here, but I did have reservations around the retention of that water tower back when the installation of the reservoir was put in there, that it was a very expensive piece of artwork that we were going to keep and strengthen and keep there. And part of that report, I believed, gave a timeline on that reservoir. So basically in around 35 years' time, it will need to have some either major work done to strengthen it or be demolished. So any real money spent on it now, I think, needs to take that into account as well. I like the idea of perhaps just lighting it like the Foxton one. You're not investing a huge amount of money on the physically attaching to the
haven't got
asset.
anything that we've actually got to discuss apart from the fact that a suggestion come forward is that it might be something that we would want to discuss further one way or the other. We're not going to come up with any answers on this one today. So. Yes, Chief Executive.
I'll just add to what Jess has written to Arno, that when we did the consultation around the keeping or demolishing the water tower, there was quite a lot of creative interest in their submissions, including shaping it into a UFO kind of looking thing. But also the Bulls Community Committee had previously asked of Council to consider having a walkway so that, like a climbing structure, such that you could climb up the inside of the building and stand on it and get a vista of the district from the top. So that's another consideration that you may wish us to pursue as an option for your future consideration, if there's enough interest.
Yeah, could I perhaps just ask the committee at this stage as to whether or not we'd like to, from the committee, take a recommendation back to the council that we pursue the option of investigation around the Bulls Tower and whatever form of it. Yeah. So beautifying the Bulls Tower, if that would be words to start with, and we'll capture what we need to in that. Councillor Panapa.
Just a side question about what Councillor Carter has raised. Do we have a policy in regards to removal of graffiti? I mean, if the issue is the graffiti that's on either structure, does the council deal with that at all?
Not aware of a policy as such around it, Councillor Panapa, no. So
I don't know if
is that nothing more than an undertaking to come back with some further information regarding that? If the committee is generally in acceptance of looking at this matter further, online, thank you. And from the floor, I think that's good.
If I may, I think let's make this an undertaking. I think what we wanted to see is the appetite before we embark on the work. Obviously, there is real appetite. We'll put that as an undertaking that we'll come back with a report of potential things that we can do with potential costs, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, given the number of people in the room and online, we've got a fairly full representation of council. I think an undertaking to move forward with that. And if you could send that back to Jess and Jen, would be good. That actually concludes the last item on today's meeting. We do have a meeting to discuss under public excluded. So with regards to that, could I have somebody move that we move into public excluded, Worship Mayor, at what are we, 10:43? And we'll have a seconder from that from Councillor Panapa. Thank you. Thank you to those all online, this recorded version, and we will now move into public excluded. Thank you.